your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell out before you blow up a plane.
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what good thing to say? I doubt it will stand up to something. I haven't even disrespected you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt. I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean.
Hello, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. Yes, hit like and subscribe. Won't you? A comment? I don't know. I don't know what to say. Before I bring on our fabulous guest, by the way, did you know you can listen to this podcast on all of the places: iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Rumble, Rockfin, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. I don't know. Put your ear up to a shell in the ocean and you'll be able to hear it. I'm just getting over like a 2-week insane sinus infection. And what I didn't realize is when you're pregnant, your entire immune system just gives you the middle finger because it prefers to keep the baby safe. So that's why I've been sick for so long. And I hate being sick. Oh, I hate being sick. It's so unproductive. It's such a waste of time. All right. Before I bring on my fabulous guest, guys, I have one more very pregnant comedy show coming up. And by the way, thank you to everyone who came out to the Grifties this past Saturday. We had a really great time at the Dojo of Comedy out in Morris Plains, New Jersey. And then Monday was a big day. Lila was visiting the studios here, the Chrissie Mayr studios, for a few days. So Monday we went to Compound, did all the shows. Then we did the Three Monkeys show run by the fabulous Sheba Mason. So it's been really busy. But guys, I have one more headlining show before I give birth next Saturday in Grantville, Pennsylvania. I'll be at the Laughing Stock Comedy Club run by our friends Rich Carucci and Jeffrey Paul. So come on out. That's an 8:30 show next Friday. Looking forward. And if, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If I give birth at this show, if my water breaks and splashes you in the front row, drinks on me. Drinks on me. It's going to be great. They said, don't be an hour away from home your last month of pregnancy. Well, guess what? I am not doing that. I am literally just pushing it till I can't anymore. All right. Enough about me. Thank you, GJJ. Hail all. Yes, hail to you, sir. I think that's about it. I'm going to bring her in. I just saw her last weekend. We were both presenting awards at the Grifties, and it was fun. And before that, I hadn't seen her, I think, since I had done a show in Austin. Maybe it was this past August. But she's a comedian. I love her. She doesn't give a fuck. That's another reason why I love her. And I'm going to bring her in. Leonarda Jonie, hello. You got a clap from me. And look in your lower, you're calling it X. You've caved.
I did call it X. I know. Mostly because the libs just want to call it Twitter, and I just like making them mad. So.
Oh, really? Well, then, fuck that.
They want to call it Twitter. Like, can we just go back to Twitter? We're like, no, it's X.
Right. It's whatever Daddy Elon wants.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, there is so much to discuss. Yeah, first of all, it was so great to see you last weekend. It had been way too long. And
that was an awesome surprise. I didn't know you were going to be there. You and Lila were going to be there. And then I loved it because I just wasn't alone that whole weekend, which was great. Anytime you get to see your comedy friends, it's great. And the other thing too is it's like three women getting along, which means the universe is going to implode.
which never happens. Yeah, 3 female stand-up comics getting
Three
along.
female stand-up comics getting along. Very unusual.
It is, and we say it all the time when I go on the road with Lila and Keanu. We're like, this is unheard of. Normally, this would be just far and away the ultra max, way too many females on a show. Usually it's like one is more than people want to see. But
well, I think that's why we can kind of get, I know for me, you can kind of get like a little hostile every time there's like another female comedian around, because the industry kind of makes it like there can only ever be one, you know, and then you're always trying to be the best one. So I got to check that within myself too, because I realized that that's fake and it's coming from a scarcity mentality.
It's good to be competitive. It's definitely, but you're only competing with yourself. You're competing with the last recording in your phone of you doing
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you want to keep the focus on, but we do get competitive. I get competitive with male comedians. I'm not going to say it's just limited to women, you know?
Right.
So, but I know there's that, it's even in our nature to be competitive with women, but it's like, you think about it, somebody did give me some advice. They said, you know, the female comedians are not going to try and fuck you. And I was like,
no, not even the lesbians.
Not even the lesbians. And you're like, you know, we should really kind of think about that, because that is a kind of safety in numbers that is good, where it's like, yeah, it's flattering sometimes, but sometimes you're just like, can we just like chill and just be like, be coworkers, you know?
No, because you're in an industry. I don't know how old you were when you started. I started at 26. You're in an industry. You're pursuing a dream, which means boundaries are going to be. I mean, just look at Hollywood. Jesus Christ, Hollywood is the main industry of, you want to make it, you're gonna have to be okay with having your boundaries crossed.
Yeah, constantly.
Stand-up is like, there's elements of that, but there's even less oversight. There's no the people that are running the shows are your age or just a little bit older, and
sometimes younger, and they don't know what they're doing.
Younger.
Yeah,
there's no HR. There's no like, it's even less kind of professional than Hollywood, which is the closest comparison. So when you're starting out, like, very few of us are lucky to have any kind of a comedy mentor. Like, if I was going to tell a girl in her 20s starting stand-up, I would be like, yeah, just produce your show, your own show, as soon as you can. That way you don't feel like, you know, you have to, like, you're going to have any girl in any industry, you're going to have guys flirting with you, trying to sleep with you, but don't feel like you have to entertain that just to get stage time. Like, just work hard, kind of. Yes, be nice to people.
I think the other thing too that happens is, one, there just are way more male comedians, right? There just aren't that many female comedians.
Just the stats, right?
Yeah, and I actually think that works to our benefit, you know, because then it's sort of, we become like a little bit of a novelty. But I think what happens is, because there are so few women around, and a lot of these guys, you know, especially the young ones, they really don't know how to talk to women. And they're like, oh my God, there's one of us. And they kind of all descend. And as a woman, you could let that kind of be like, oh my God. Like, you know, but then you got to look around and be like, these are basically funny incels. And some of them are not even funny. So don't be too flattered by it. And, you know, for me, like, I've just had a policy of like, I don't date them. I don't sleep with them. None of it. Because, one, I like to be able to walk into any comedy room and not feel any kind of weirdness about someone that's in there. Right.
That's what I would recommend to women too. Yeah. Really try your hardest. If you fall in love, you fall in love. But like,
that's a different story. If you really fall in love with somebody.
Comic.
But most of the time, they don't even have resources. So it's like, these guys are like Peter Pan syndrome. Like, oh, will you be my mommy? It's like, no, grow up. It's disgusting. Grow up.
Yeah. I wish I could go back, because I dated a comic who was like 14 years older than me. Had, you know, something that drew me to him was like, he was very established in the industry, but like, did he help my career at all? 0%. In fact, it was a detriment. And that's something I'll touch on later when we get into our theme of the day, which is getting banned from comedy clubs.
Ooh.
But yeah, it's I would just say, yeah, just work your fucking ass off. Also, this is an industry like nothing is guaranteed. No one is obligated to give you anything. It is all about who you know. It is all about who your friends are.
To an extent, right? Because it is all about who you know and who your friends are to get the opportunities. But then if you get them and you can't deliver, the audience doesn't give a fuck about who you know. I mean, look at what happened to Brendan Schaub.
I don't even fully understand what happened to Brandon Schaub. Did he get Me Too'd?
No, he didn't get Me Too'd. He got opportunities before he was ready for them.
Okay.
And so, I know, like, and I've never seen his stand-up, so I can't tell you if he's good or bad, right? But the people that went and saw it weren't willing to come back and shell out money again because they didn't have a great experience, and that's the reality of the situation. You could be put in front of a whole crowd, but if you don't deliver the goods, they're never going to want to see you again.
Yeah.
So and that's not to say like there's a lot of people who are, probably aren't like the best stand-up comedians, but they've been able to make a career for themselves in different ways. Like they're really good on podcasts or, various other media formats, doing YouTube videos or whatever, which is great. Like I don't begrudge anybody their success, but in terms of the art form of stand-up, you could be given all the opportunities you want. And then if you don't deliver, people aren't going to buy tickets to your show.
Right. You may get an opportunity because you're the only woman on the show, because you're the only gay on the show. And there are those token bookings, but right. If you can't bring it when you're given the opportunity, whether you've made your own show or you're buddies with the booker, it's your chance to stand up on your own 2 feet. And
right. And that is what it is. Stand-up it's just you. Every aspect of stand-up is you. It's your writing. It's your performance. It's your stage presence. It's all you.
Yeah. And so how many years have you been in it now, Leonarda?
It'll be 5 years in April. So
okay, that's you're doing great for only 5 years in.
Thank you. Let me just say this. I did start later in my life. Okay. I started in my 30s. At that point in my life, I stopped caring about being cute. Everything on the internet was like, you're expired. You're over 30. You're expired. So I was like, cool. I was fatter. I didn't care about brushing my hair, nothing. So I was like, I came from an industry of when I was an actress I was like, had an eating disorder, super obsessed with like looking a certain way. And that just got so tiresome that when I finally made it to stand up, I was like, oh, finally an industry where I don't have to care about what I look like. I didn't know what the hell. I was wrong, totally wrong. But it's like it did.
You look at like who are our idols in stand up? For me, it's Roseanne and it's fucking Joan Rivers, and I look forward to being like an old broad still doing.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I had a sense of relief. I was like, oh, here's the one place I'm not going to be judged on my looks. So I'd go on stage in like dirty sweaters. I didn't brush my hair or whatever. And it was almost intentional because I was like, let's really just work on the content and the comedy. And I thank God that I did, because it was never a day that I was like, oh, I can't go on stage because I'm fat. I'm like, it's probably going to help my comedy to be a little fat too, because people find that funnier,
Oh, yeah.
And so because I started later in life and I had developed already a point of view on things. And also I had been doing a lot of things that put me in front of public speaking, being funny. I sort of started a little bit with an advantage, almost like I had been doing it already for 6 years.
Because you were comfortable in your own skin.
I was comfortable in my own skin. I was comfortable talking to people. I already knew how to work a room from previous experiences. I knew how to be funny. Like it was just something that came to me. There was still a whole lot of stuff that I had to develop, like joke structure and arc, storytelling, all this stuff. I'm not going to say that that's not true and that I'm not, light years ahead of where I was when I started, but you would have never known when I started that I had just started. And so I had a couple of advantages. And I do think starting later in life for stand-ups, male or female, is better because you've had a chance to kind of like live a little bit and get like, disgruntled with the world.
You'd have to really bring something to the table. If you're 22 doing and I remember when I was interning at Conan and I met Liz Mealy, who was telling me, I was very impressed by her. And she started stand up at 16 years old. And we always hear about like these whiz kids who start stand up in their teenage years. And it's like, while that's cute, I need to hear an adult who, like, an adult perspective, someone who's lived a little, like someone that I can like laugh with, like we've shared common experiences, and like that's great for something like an America's Got Talent or a TV show or something. But like,
not for. I mean, stand-up comedy in a way is like philosophy. You are giving a philosophy of something. You're making it funny. You want to make it palatable, but that is what it is. Do you want to hear the philosophy of a 16-year-old or a 20-year-old? No, you know, and that's why the older stand-ups get, generally speaking, they get funnier. It's not just the experience, it's like life.
And you also give less fucks the older you get.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, at that point I had really given no fucks. I was already divorced. I was like, I had another failed relationship. I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to be the sassy broad who has, you know, is just going to be given the truth about life, giving zero fucks, and just saying the shit that everybody else is too afraid to say, because what do I have to lose?
Yeah. Did you start out in the Austin scene?
No, I started in New York, actually. I started in New York.
Okay.
I started about 8 months before the pandemic, or no, about a year before the pandemic, right? Because I started April 2019. They didn't really lock everything down till about end of March. So I had a good year. But then even after that, like I was in the underground scene. You know, the people that I was friends with were renegades. They were like, yeah, we're going to go do comedy on a rooftop. We're going to do comedy in a basement. We're going to do comedy in an attic. So I was still hitting every chance I had to do stand-up. Like, I think it was 2 weeks that I bought the lockdown. And then I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm out of this. I'm done.
Then you left New York, or you just meaning?
No, I said I'm out of being the.
Uh-oh, you muted yourself. Leonarda! You muted yourself.
Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry,
yeah.
Like this stupid Amber Alert. It's like, dude, you know, you guys are the ones who kidnapped the kid. And this one's not even white. So what do you want me to do about it?
Okay, so you started in New York, and a year before the pandemic hits. You're like most of us, you give it, you're like, okay, and then 2 weeks later you're like, all right, well, what the hell's really happening here? People are not stopping in the streets.
We started organizing, doing stand-up in parks, on rooftops, you know, in secret locations, things that nobody knew. And I did that for almost a year. And then February of 2021, I still remember it. I was in Astoria Park. There had been a blizzard. The guy running the show didn't cancel it, even though there was a blizzard. I went because I was like, I'm committed to the craft. And I'm out there, and my lips, by the time I have to go on, my lips are frozen. It's basically a mic because everybody around is a stand. Nobody wants to laugh because we're all freezing. And I was like, okay, this is insane. And I had been considering coming to Austin. I heard Joe Rogan talk about he's going to create a scene here. He was also talking about freedom of speech. I was dealing with a lot of vitriol for the things that I was saying because I was attacking the trans movement before it was fucking cool. I was talking about racial differences before it was cool to do it now and edgy. You know, when everybody was afraid to say anything, I said, fuck it, because I didn't want to do stand-up where I had to censor myself. And so when I heard that, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go down to Austin. Like, if Joe's going to create this scene where freedom of speech really matters and comics can be comics, let me go check it out, is what I thought. Let's see what it's really about. So my plan was I was going to come check it out just for a couple months, and then I was going to come back to New York. Well, I came down, and there was so many shows, and the whole thing was open. There was the super liberal part of town was still making people wear masks. I just wouldn't go there. And this was when, you know, New York was shut down. You had to wear a mask outside, like insanity. And I was able to say all the stuff I wanted to say, and people were laughing and not trying to fight me. And I was like, okay, you know, what Joe was talking about is real, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to stay here. And I've just been here since.
Wow. So what was going to be a few months just turned into you staying there. You never went back to New York.
Yeah, and then I realized I could live better. Wasn't like, you know, always under chronic stress, getting on the subway, trying not to get assaulted, you know, who's going to follow me home. And the city just, you know, I've lived in New York City my whole life. I grew up in the Bronx, like I went to college in the Bronx.
Wow.
Queens, Brooklyn. I've lived in every freaking borough.
Wow.
Except Staten Island, because that doesn't count. And I went through like the 90s when it was a little crazy. And what I experienced in that last year, I was like, no, something sinister. It felt like a sinister energy. And
In New York City.
In New York City, and like the criminals were just emboldened. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've survived this long, like not getting raped, not getting mugged, not getting assaulted. I'm not about to start now. You know,
you don't want to push your luck anymore. And there was this new scene coming up in Austin, and kind of headed up by, I remember it took months and months. Like there was all this talk about Mothership opening, and it was like, I remember just waiting and like
Mothership didn't even open until 2 years after I moved down here. So I came down here and I was a part of that early group of comics who were building the scene, because believe it or not, like there was no scene when we got here. Everybody's like, oh, there was a little bit of stand-up. There was left-wing, idiotic, like self-masturbatory comedians who congratulate themselves about saying the most PC shit they could say and considered them a comedy scene. And they did not like us coming down here. They kind of blocked us out of all this.
What year was this where you said
this
that
was
there was
2021? 2021. Okay. That's the pre-existing Austin comedy scene. There was not what you have now, which is a budding, alive comedy scene of a lot of different comics, very talented comics, newbies who are showing promise. And for me, like that's extremely important to have in a comedy scene, because you get better when you are around better people all the time. And then you need the new fodder to kind of, reinvigorate the scene. And that wasn't there. And, now there's a lot more people, but let me just say, when I got here 2 years ago, I was like, hey, if better comedians don't move here, I'm leaving, because I'm going to get worse. Because I was often one of the funnier ones on the lineup, and I was like, yeah, I don't want that. Like I'm 2 years in. I should not be one of the funnier ones in the lineup. That shouldn't be okay. I need somebody to learn from.
That makes sense. Okay. So when did you start so the Mothership opens when?
Last year. It opens last year, 2023. So 2 years after it finally opens. But, Joe was a part of building the scene too, because even though his Mothership wasn't open, he was doing shows at Vulcan. Tony was doing shows at, first he did it at Antone's, then Vulcan. He was doing shows at Creek. He was trying to really build these places so that people who liked him would know about these comedy venues even after he left and started his Mothership, which kudos to him, because from what I know, he did a lot of shows at Creek even for free, just to keep the comedy club afloat, because he knew it's important. Like he didn't want just his club to be the only place in town, because you need a whole community. Sunset Strip was here. At that point, they were just renting out a room in the conference. They were one of the early builders of comedy scene down here. They were really, and there was a lot of people who put that work in. And so when Mothership opened, there was this whole promise, like, okay, finally it's come to light. Awesome. Let's go. And I got to say, it hasn't been that. So, and again, I don't think it's because of Joe.
Of course, he's far too busy to, he's not managing the club. I don't even know how. I've only been to the Mothership maybe twice, just on trips to Austin. Like I'm in town to do InfoWars or headline another room, and just pop by like with Lila, because she knew a lot of the people, because it was a lot of LA people who came over and started working there. And so I know nothing about like how it runs or who really gets up there. I mean, like you can see who gets up there from the website. Yeah. But so when did you first start to try, you would think, all right, you'd start doing open mics at Mothership, or what was your process like for starting to get in over there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I did one of the first open mics they had there. I was lucky enough, like I was not asked to audition for a door guy position, which I thought was strange, because pretty much everybody in the scene knew me. I had done Kill Tony at that point 5 times. Every single time Tony would rave about my performance. I'd get Secret Show. One of my sets from there went viral. So everybody who needed to know me knew me. And I wasn't asked to audition. And then I just thought, you know what, maybe it's not personal. Maybe they thought like I'm older. I have my own business. Like I wouldn't really been able to put the time in that is required there. So I didn't take it personally. I kind of was like happy for my friends. And because of that, I knew most of the door people. I knew like 80 to 90% of the door people, they're cool. So, you know, they were like, hey, just start auditioning for the crew, Mike, and like that's how you'll get in. You know, Adam the booker will see you, because Adam didn't know me at that point. And so I was in on one of the first ones. I did, like, I want to say a 90% excellent job. I think I made one mistake, which was, you know, I got a crazy loud applause break at one of my jokes, and I should have ended the set there, but I tried to add one more thing in because we're always like, oh God, you know, and it just didn't fit. And so it still got laughs, but it wasn't that loud bang. But even as such, like, I think there was enough to see with what I had done to be invited back, but I wasn't. So again, I didn't.
And when was this? When was this like audition?
Last year.
Okay.
So we want to say maybe like April 2023, because they opened the club, but they didn't quite. I don't know exactly when they had their first open mic, but I was on one of the first ones.
Okay.
So I didn't get invited back for that. I thought, okay, maybe this guy doesn't like me. Maybe these people don't like me. I don't know. I had a feeling of like not feeling particularly warm and invited in there. And I didn't know why. I didn't know if I was imagining it or whatever, but I was just like, you know what, just like, don't take it personally and keep working. And so I went back another open mic. Again, I wasn't invited back. And then Brian Simpson asked me to do his bucket poll, which is basically improv and crowd work. And it's like, I excel in that because I come from the New York scene where you're just always talking shit to people. And I did a great job. I actually got like a couple new jokes out of that because it was
that's great.
Aborted fetuses. And I was like, oh, it's pretty funny. And so that still didn't work. And then a couple of people who were in the scene who were established, and they were established and they really liked me, Brian Holtzman and Jamar Neighbors, were like, dude, we got to get you in here because you're exactly what the club's about. You're a freedom of speech. You're a renegade. You're saying things that really a lot of other women aren't saying. You're just different. And it's everything that Joe Rogan's about. So like, you should be in this scene. And I'm like, I know, but you know, maybe like Adam just doesn't know me, doesn't know if I can deliver. And so they start really talking me up, you know? And so, and then also I had a conversation with Adam, and I think he kind of saw like my humanity, because I think sometimes I'm very brash on stage and I'm very like that, and people can think that that's the only dimension to me. But when you get to know me in life, like I'm actually quite kind and I care about people. It's just, that's not that funny on stage. You know what I mean? So it's
no, everyone puts on a little something on stage.
Yeah. And it's a part of who I am, but it's like you know, it's just this whole thing. And I'm still developing as a comedian. I'd love to be able to bring these other parts in as I develop. I'm just not there yet, you know? And so because of that, I think Adam kind of like took another look at me because I had just done the mic a week ago and I did a good job. And he was like, you know, why don't you come back Monday on the crew show? I want to see some more from you. So I was like, oh, awesome. And at this point, he's got other people talking about me.
And yes, and this is the former Comedy Store booker from LA.
Yes.
Now booking.
So I was like, oh, cool. He's going to give me a shot. So I came in, I prepped, I got everything ready, fucking did slaughtered for 5 minutes because I know how to kill. Okay, that I know how to. Sometimes you can know how to kill or whatever, and the audience is not with you. The Rogan crowd is really awesome. They're there to laugh. They're there to have a good time. So I fucking killed. So he goes, "Can you come back again next week?" I was like, "Cool, yeah, no problem. I'll come back as many times as you want." I come back. He goes, "Okay, I want to have you come back one more time, right? And then we're going to talk about you signing the papers to get you in for spots."
Shit.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, awesome. So at this point, now Holtzman has asked me to come in and do his Holtzman and Friends. And Holtzman just gave me a shot. Holtzman had seen me a little bit with comedy, but he didn't really know if I was good. And so he was a little bit nervous because he's bringing somebody in and he, you know, is going to reflect bad on him. And I was like, Holtzman, I will give you everything I got. And I did. I mean, I have that set. You can hear the crowd. Like as soon as I get on stage, I mean, it was just, it was electric. And Holtzman was so happy and relieved. He was like, oh my God. He's walking around. He's going, do you see her? She's killed. It was so cute. It was like my grandpa, you know?
Aww.
And so I did that. I did the follow-up the way I was supposed to. And, you know, Adam watches my set, leaves the room, and I hear nothing again. I don't hear, hey, fill out this paperwork. Hey, we want you to start calling in. And I have no idea what happened. The idea that I didn't do a good job, completely out the window, because I was getting applause breaks to crap. I mean, you can time the laughter. I have those sets recorded on my phone. I will play them for people. You tell me that I didn't do a good job. So that's not it. So at that point, I go, you know what? I don't know. You've seen me 6, 7, or 8 times. You've seen me in different contexts. You've seen me do the mic. You've seen me do the when nobody's expecting you to be good. You've seen me do the cruise show. You've seen me do Holtzman and Friends. You've seen me do the bucket show twice at this point, totally free. So you see all the different capacities that I have. And if you decide that it's still not what you want, there's nothing I can do about that. You're free at liberty to do that. Some people are going to love you and some people aren't. But at some point between the, when I started, because at first it kind of knocks you down, like the first mics that I went to and they didn't call me back. I'm like, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Like, you start to go there. And then at some point I just decided, this is one guy's opinion and he's entitled to his opinion. He can believe whatever he wants to believe. I am not going to base the opinion of myself on the opinion of someone else who I don't even know and I don't know what they're looking for. I have enough evidence in my life for my performances to know that I'm good. I get enough bookings around town, out of town, repeated bookings for people I work for to know I'm delivering goods. And so my self-confidence is going to come from my own opinion of myself. I know when I'm delivering. I know when I'm phoning it in. And I know that I'm not phoning it in when I go to this club. And for whatever reason, they don't want me there. And that's it. And so I let it go. I let go of trying to get in the club. I let go. I had people who were like, we can put you on the mic. We can put you on the cruise show. I was like, don't even worry about it. I'm not going to keep knocking on a door that doesn't want to open. Because the other part too is I was like, I believe in God. So, if God's saying like, hey, this isn't for you, no problem. I'm going to accept that. Like all that's ever happened anytime I get rejected from something is I just work harder and I get better as a comedian. So that's what I felt. I was like, you know what? Just keep getting better. At some point, maybe you'll work there. And even if you never work there, it's one club.
Right. So how did we get from this point to you getting like an official ban?
So I'm not 100% sure why I got banned. I'm not 100. I have a couple of suspicions, but there's a couple of things. Number one, Carrie Mitchell is not the greatest person who works there. She used to be.
Is that a comic or just a person who?
No, she is the bar manager, and okay. I know for a fact that she has banned other comedians from the club for things that have nothing to do with their behavior in the club or their comedy or anything like that. And to me, that is insane because you are a bar manager. From what I understand, that entails you managing the bar. Maybe she has responsibilities that I don't know about getting rid of comedians who don't belong there. But, the people that she banned were not people who had done anything wrong or they have a best friend or a person who's a regular in the club. And so that's why they're around. Okay. So I know that somebody at the club doesn't really like me. And again, I don't want to get into like a whole bunch of names and stuff. And I know that this person's been in her ear. So there was a lot of animosity every time I'd come in there where it would be like, they would just be like, oh, you have to make sure you're locking up your phone. You have to make sure you have a wristband, all this stuff. And this was kind of unheard of for a working comedian or somebody who's being auditioned there to have to lock up their phone or get a wristband on them, especially because everybody knows me and they know the kind of comedian I am. And they know that I'm not the kind of person to record somebody and try to cancel people. Like,
right.
When Peng Dang tried to cancel Tony Hinchcliffe, like I didn't even really know Tony like that, but I was like, no, we're not doing this. We're not having comedians cancel comedians. So I didn't really care what the hell the issue was. I was like, on principle. So they know that. So that was already like a little bit of a persecution. And I was like, you know what? Those are your official rules. No problem. We'll lock up my phone every time. I'll get a wristband every time. I won't go to any part of the club that I don't belong in. And I think it kind of bothered them that I, as a non-regular, non-pass people, had these kinds of privileges just because everybody knew me and loved me there. And they also respected me as a comedian.
And what were your privileges?
I could go watch, if there was a good comic in town that I really wanted to watch, I could get a wristband so I can go watch them in the back of the room. I could hang out at Mitzi's after hours because everybody knew me. I could get on the crew show or the open mic kind of like when I wanted to, even though I didn't really ask for that a lot. So these kinds of things, you know, a lot of times. So for example, Tom Green was in town. The last weekend I was there, Tom Green was in town. My friend got me a wristband to watch him in the VIP section. And as I'm sitting there, Jason Rouse comes in, and I know him from from like being here for a few years. And Jason Rouse is like really good friends with Tom Green. So I go, oh, what are you doing after this? He goes, I'm going to hang out with Tom a little bit in the green room. Do you want to come say hi to him? And I was like, can I? I don't want to get you in trouble. Like, I'm not officially invited into the green room. He goes, no, don't even worry about it. Tom and I have been friends for 20 years. So that's an example. Like, I got invited into the green room by Tom Green's best friend. Now, if you came into the green room, you might have thought I just snuck in there, which I'm not going to do that at Joe Rogan's club. Like, I'm not retarded, you know? So that might have been something that, you know, the person who specifically doesn't like me made up and said I snuck into the green room, or I was in some place I didn't need to be, even though I had a VIP bracelet. I had locked up my phone, the whole thing.
And it wasn't this bar manager. It was someone else who like is in their ear.
Who probably said it to the bar manager. Exactly. Right. So that could have been it. Or it could have been that I shared Thai Rivera's video. So either one of those is possible. And in the first case, I did nothing wrong because I was invited in. You didn't sell me, no matter what, you can't go to the green room. I spoke to Tom. Tom was real chill. He was happy to talk to me. There was no sense of Tom like being like, I don't want anybody around. There wasn't really anybody in the green room hanging out with him. He was happy to talk to the people he could talk to. So that can't be it. And then sharing Thai Rivera's video, maybe you could get upset because Thai's video was critical of the club and some of their policies. But the idea that just sharing somebody's video would make you persona non grata to me is like, okay, well, I'm not going to not support my friends because you're threatened by that.
Right.
I'm just not going to do that.
So how did you find out you were banned?
Oh, my friends, the door people, texted me. That's it.
So you get home.
They didn't even tell me. They didn't even tell me officially. They're like, you know, they want me to show up to the club and try to get in and then be humiliated. And I'm like, you know, guys, honestly, it's so petty and insane. But one of my friends was like, you know, you're officially banned. And I was like, that's news to me. But I actually kind of feel liberated because it was feeling real toxic every time I was going in there because some people having such a sense of entitlement and power and abusing that, which is what Thai was talking about in the first place, you know?
Yeah, which is the second thing that we want to cover here. And like, and if there's anything I've missed in your banning story, just, you know, bring it in.
No, those are it. I mean, to tell you the truth, like those are the only two things that I can come up with in my mind.
Yeah.
I don't know what else it could be.
Yeah. It's, and these things happen. Like ultimately it's you could
listen, you have every right to ban me if you want to ban me. Like I can't even be like, oh, I can't believe you banned. You don't want me around. No problem. I was already feeling like you didn't want me around. So like, at least this way it's like explicit, you know, and you're allowed to do whatever you want. If you don't like the fact that I happen to agree with Thai on a lot of his points, not necessarily everything. Like I don't know some of the stuff that he talked about, but I know a lot of the stuff he talked about. And I'm like, a lot of those critiques were valid.
Yeah. And so now we get to something that when we all met up at the Grifties last Saturday, we were all
Shout out to Hotep Jesus. That was a fun event.
Yes, it was a great event. So me, you, Lila there. And this is all, we're talking about this because it was just happening. So this
had just happened. Yeah.
Like it just happened. So I guess maybe a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago, he dropped the first video. Or maybe,
And that's the one that I shared. He dropped the first video where he was talking about, I think he was criticizing the way, I forgot exactly what it was, but there was stuff in there that I agreed with. That was the video that I shared. I shared it on my Insta stories and I shared it on Twitter.
Let me scroll back here. I'll pull it. So this was released, 13 days ago. So 2 weeks ago, part one, Thai Rivera, who's been, he's been on this podcast. I last ran into him, I think in August at the American Liberty Awards in Austin, when I was down there with Lila. He's a 20-year veteran stand-up comic, and he just released this
very funny guy. Very funny. I watched Thai literally murder at open mics with 5 people at midnight when nobody's paying attention.
Yeah. He's great.
Yeah,
That you should be able to have a good time and do well, no matter how many people are there. But yeah, he's been doing this 20 years. He released this 2-part video on YouTube being critical of Joe Rogan's club, the Comedy Mothership. Part 1 is called The Money, which he released 2 weeks ago. And he was talking about basically like his experience, like he noticed
not
there
getting
were
paid. Yeah.
similar to what you're saying, new comics that they hear other either more established comics or ones that are trying to get in talk about how this, Joe Rogan's club is like this oasis. It's free speech. If you don't give a fuck, if you're just funny, you'll be able to thrive here. And then I guess word gets out about how much money they pay for sets. So Ty's has an issue with, he works hard. He's genuinely funny. And then he finds, he's getting less and less spots there and he's getting less money than other people. He's like, hey, I'm not claiming to be Andrew Schultz, that I need to be making Andrew Schultz money, but he kind of put it together that he was making $100 less per set than these bigger comics that are more household names. But he is still
no, he was making $100 less per set, not even the household names. Like he said, like, I don't expect to get the household names, but he meant like people that were at his level or below, just like really unknowns who, just happen to be plugged in with the circle that is currently running the mothership, which is not, it's not who everybody thinks it is. So
maybe I'll play a little bit. There's in this first timestamp, he talks about how, and I think this is a great lesson for any comedian. Like, no one, if you get banned by a club, that is not the end of your career. I think most people at some point, you're going to piss off somebody at some either club or festival, just living your life, a tweet,
if you have any kind of point of view, any kind of personality, you're going to piss somebody off. Yeah. Those are the facts.
Yeah, it's bound to happen. So in this clip, Ty is talking about how, you don't need the mothership to have a career. It's not any one club should be your whole career.
Great club if they're being good to you and if they're going to treat you fair. But as far as the mothership being actually necessary to your career, the mothership is not the end all and be all of stand-up comedy. And if you ask me, for as much as Joe and his friends would like to say the mothership is the most like the Comedy Store,
it's just like the Comedy Store.
It is.
Yeah.
Even when I was doing the most spots there, I would have told you that is not true. The mothership is very exclusive. Everybody was welcomed in the Comedy Store. So that meant people that were maybe a little bit off. There were some street people that hung out there all the time. Boone Chakalaka, who recently passed away, the late Boone Chakalaka, R.I.P. He used to be there all the time. It was like a real cast of characters at the Comedy Store, and everybody was allowed there. That's actually kind of what gave it its flavor in a lot of ways. And it gave you some stuff to look at that was just like, wow, that was crazy. Mothership is nothing like that. They don't allow any riffraff in the mothership. You're lucky if you get on the open mic if you're anything different. If you want to know, and I don't say this because I run the show there, but honestly, I've said this from the beginning, the Creek and the Cave is the most like the Comedy Store because Rebecca, the owner of the Creek and the Cave, allows everybody there. And it's like the Comedy Store in the way that you really have to do something wrong to get banned from the Creek and the Cave. And believe me, I've talked to Rebecca about it and been like, we really need to get rid of these people. And she's like, this is what it is. And she's very clear with me. That's the way she's running it.
It's so funny. And even like, and I people get up where they like to get up. Like people get up at the Creek. And I've talked about this in episodes past. I'm banned from the Creek, right? And like, just to make a long story short, I laughed when I listened to this video because Ty's going, wow, the Creek is great. You'd have to do something really bad to get banned from the Creek. They allow everyone. And I'm like, oh. So, okay, how do I shorten this? About 9 years ago, what I mentioned earlier, like, I dated an older stand-up comic who really didn't do much for my career, but I was young and just starting out and I, liked him and whatever. So we dated a couple years. But anyway, this comic, I did not know that he was dating Rebecca Trent, the booker of the Creek, the summer prior to us getting together. So we start dating like October. We sort of become official in January. I did not realize that they had dated the summer prior. And this comic had a show at the Creek. And this is the Creek. This is 2012. Okay. This is the Creek in Long Island City in New York. And I just, it kind of blew up in my face. Like all of a sudden, I guess she got really, and I didn't see this. Apparently she got really pissed one night that I was there, found out we were dating. I heard from another comic that she was throwing bottles, just enraged that this comic was now dating me, and said, and similar to you, I found out about this ban secondhand. And she said, I know I don't want to see her here anymore. So combination of this other comic and my boyfriend at the time told me, yeah, you're banned. And this is 2012. I am like, I started comedy, I think 2010, 2011. So I'm just starting comedy, and I get banned from a club just for dating somebody. That
it could be for any reason at all.
This book, and I had no fucking
clue. To be fair, Chrissy, I would have banned you too. I would have been like, this hoe.
I was like, if I had known,
this is why this guy broke up with me, for this slut. Ban.
If I had known that they had dated, I would have been like, I'm good. I don't need to date this person.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go to open mics. Yeah. I'll find somebody else. If I had known, like, it was like, date this person or be banned from a club. And it wasn't just that club. It was she had been booking another club at this room called, God, was it Cabin? That was another big show. So I couldn't go to the Creek and I couldn't go to Cabin. And it really bothered me because I felt so misunderstood. I was like, this isn't me trying to be like, F you. Like, I just didn't know that they were an item until after the fact, until I was banned. And I wish this fucking boyfriend of mine at the time had done something to clear it up, but he didn't, because he did a podcast at the Creek at the time, and he didn't want to ruin that for himself.
Yeah. Well, people don't. But this gets into the Thai thing, right? Because people a lot of times in this industry are terrified beggars who are happy to get any scraps thrown their way. And so Thai's out here and he's saying a lot that is true. And I don't necessarily endorse or agree with everything that he's saying, but a lot of what he's saying is true. And he's almost like a mouthpiece for a lot of the comics in the Austin comedy scene who have felt kind of disgruntled and felt like they're not getting their fair shot. And so behind the scenes, they're all telling him, like, thank you. I've witnessed it. I hang out with Thai a lot. Like, he's actually one of my good friends because he's very real and he tells me the truth. He told me when I wasn't doing well that I needed to be consistent. And I took that. Did it hurt? Yes. Was he right? Yes. Did I change it and start doing tremendously better? Yes. So I like people who will tell me the truth to my face instead of talking shit about me behind my back, because it gives me an opportunity to adjust and make the improvements that I need. And that's why I hang out with Thai a lot, because I do think he's a mouth speaker. Do I think he's gay? Yes.
He is gay.
Do I think, he's got a little touch and flair for the dramatic? Absolutely. But that's, sometimes the stuff that makes us great is also what makes us crazy. Not that Ty's crazy. I don't think he's crazy at all. But I do kind of feel like he's a little bit out on a ledge totally by himself, because there's a lot of people supporting him behind the scenes and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. But nobody's really publicly.
Well, because here's why, Leonarda, even me, even me talking about this right now with you could come back and fuck me over. Like
honestly, it could, but I'd like to remind everybody that Joe Rogan was banned from the Comedy Store for a long time because he dared to speak up against Carlos Mencia stealing people's jokes, because Joe Rogan saw an injustice.
Right.
And he said, this is not right. This is not fair. And him and Brian Redband risked their acceptance into what was then the major comedy club of the comedy scene for the sake of what was right and what was just. And so I feel like that kind of thing is important to do, because of that, everybody knows what Carlos Mencia is about. Because of that, he doesn't get to just keep coasting on other people's work, which is wrong. And it's absolutely a sin of comedy. And I think the important thing, because again, You're the booker. You can book who you want. You can ban who you want, all that stuff. But I think what he is calling out, this idea of there's an exclusivity. There's a sense, and this is not necessarily coming from Joe Rogan or the top, because I've met Joe and he is the exact opposite. He's almost like equanimous with everyone, regardless of where you're at in the starting point. That was my experience with him. So it was very shocking. What I believe has happened is people who've never had any power in their life all of a sudden have been elevated to positions of power and prestige that they would have never earned on their own. And then they're taking it out on people who are lower than them, any comedians who haven't gotten in, any comedians who are still trying to develop, anything like that, and almost like whipping them with it, with this sense of exclusivity. Oh no, this club is for us. Now, I don't think the Mothership can be like the Comedy Store or can be like the Creek, in which everybody's welcome or riffraff is welcome, because of the heightened fame of Joe. Like you can't do that, because you could have lunatics coming in there or people that just want to get at
activists. Yeah.
Right. Activists. So
Joe's
that's,
club. You're going to attract activists.
that is understandable. However, there is a middle ground between letting everybody in, even potential like detriment-minded people, versus the absolute like sense of elitism that is again happening by people who just want to protect their positions of power and are threatened by newbies. That and the middle ground where it's like these are established comedians in the scene. For them to want to come in and watch a official, like really established comic so they can learn from them, or to want to hang out at Mitzi so they can hang out with their friends or whatever. And for you to say, no, you can't do that because you're not part of the family, that's a little cultish. And what you're going to do there is you're going to insulate the community from any kind of input, which I think actually feeds something. And you're going to petrify. You're going to putrefy. Sorry, putrefy is the word. You're going to get sick. You're going to get sick and you're going to get toxic. And that's what is happening. That's what Ty's talking about. And that's where I don't want to leave him out on the ledge by himself, where it's like, oh, it's just this one crazy disgruntled comedian who's mad he didn't get spots. Like, he doesn't care.
Right.
What he's talking about is he really is plugged into the comedy scene a lot. He really does talk to the newbies and the open micers, and he sees the impact that, you know, having this broadcasted image of the Mothership versus what they get when they come here, it's having bad effects on people. And again, not everybody that gets shut out of the Mothership deserves to be in there. There's a lot of people who like looked at Ty's video, were like, yeah, I was right. And I was like, no, you suck. I've seen you. You're not getting shut out because anybody has any prejudice against you. And maybe if you cared a little bit more about the stand-up and less about the fame, because that's really why you want to get into Mothership, you would be better and it wouldn't bother you so much.
Right. And that's what Ty is all about, the stand-up. He's a 20-year veteran. He talks about in these videos how he still does open mics. He still drills his sets. He respects these bigger clubs so that when he goes there, he's not, reading off his phone. He knows his shit. He really makes sure he'll disperse newer stuff with the stuff that he knows works. Because when you respect a venue, you're not going to just be like, I don't know, what else is funny?
Yeah. That's true. That's very true.
With your,
now, I don't know what else is funny might be something you do at an open mic, honestly, but not at like what's supposed to be the #1 comedy club in the world.
Right, in the world. I'm going to get to a couple of these comments really quick. From Deranged Lunatic, Chrissie Leonarda would be great on Simcast. I agree. We'll have to get you a date for that.
I think we do have a date. I talked to Frank.
Oh, we have a date. There we go.
I think I'm doing next Sunday.
Oh, good. Okay. Melissa Dale Neal found Leonarda through Slightly Offensive a few weeks ago. She's hilarious.
I'm fully offensive.
Oh, both of us. Thank you for the super chat. I like Leonarda, but it's fine. With an A. But didn't hear of her until she did Elijah's Slightly Offensive show. There are some people who do not like him. I like you both. Thanks, Bose. So Ty is talking about this thing too, that what you're talking about, Leonarda, of like it getting insular. And it makes, I think any club is gonna book their friends who they like working with, and
you have every right to do that. You have every right to do that, right? And that's on you. But I think what Ty's talking about is that ultimately it's going to be to your detriment, because you do want new blood. You do want fresh blood, and you want exciting things, and you want dangerous comics because it keeps everybody alive. And you should have people who don't like each other in the same club. I think that, I mean, that makes you be a little competitive. Like, I don't like this person, I gotta do better. And then they just don't get toxic and like, you know, don't start wars with each other. I think that's unnecessary.
And then so Ty touches on this very thing when he says, like, I was noticing I was getting fewer spots because he started to see when the out of towner comics would come in, they would get spots. And then he would see who these out of towners were, and he'd be like, well, he felt like they weren't funnier than him. But again, like, the booker is going to book who they want. And then so after this part 1, he mentions sort of casually at the end, he's like, I know the Sarah Winechuck girl. I've known her for 8 years. I've never seen her kill. And I think he maybe said the same thing about Kim Congdon. And so there was some backlash there. There were like a lot of tweets back and forth between Kim and Ty, and I even messaged her. I was like, Kim, do you have any comment about this in case like this comes up? And she just wrote LOL. So that's her official comment.
I mean, I don't blame her for not commenting, because, you know,
if somebody said I've never seen her kill, I'd be fucking pissed. I'd be like,
yeah, I would be too. But I also understand like maybe why you don't want to comment anymore. It's because like at a certain point you just keep fueling something that maybe you don't want to be a part of. You don't want to be a part of the conversation. Right. And I fully get that. Like, honestly, if somebody came out and said, oh, Leonarda's not funny and she gets too much all this, I'd be like, okay. You know, would it hurt it depends on who it was.
Would it hurt my opinion, man? Yeah.
But it's also like you're entitled to your opinion and you're entitled to say whatever you want. You know, if it was certain people, like there's certain people that I already, you know, like, you know, we already have that I might come out and fucking be like, oh, you want to talk about not funny? But in general, I found that don't feed the trolls. You know, when I had like Ukraine block me, I mean, you know, yeah, I did the whole thing with Ukraine and they came in and they were like, at first I was like firing back, and all that was doing was like pouring gasoline on the fire. It was just getting bigger. And then eventually what I did is I just muted that whole conversation. And then after about a few days, it went away.
Yeah.
So I would probably do the same. I'd be like, that's funny.
I'm going to see what else.
Yeah, and, you know, I joke with her that we need to get rid of some of these people. But honestly, I get the formula and I fully understand it. And I also get that if there's a night that I don't want to deal with that element, then I just don't have to be there. Like, I get along with the security really well. They make me feel really welcomed every time I'm there. But I didn't like the exclusivity of the mothership. So a lot of times I wouldn't hang out at Mitzi's. I would hang out at the mothership until...
Mitzi's is the bar. That is.
Yeah, Mitzi's is the bar. And he's right about that exclusivity feeling. It doesn't allow for a sense of, you know, free camaraderie. And like, listen, I perform in a lot of clubs. I'm from New York. I've performed at the Stand, like the Stand with like people like Rich Voss and Tim Dillon and like major comics, like big of the big. And after the show, it's sort of like everyone's chill. There isn't this elitism and you can't sit with us and all that. And, you know, this is something I get in New York, which I don't get here. There's a lot of banter and there's a lot of busting each other's chops, you know, ball busting. And it's fun. It puts everybody in kind of an equal plane. Like, it doesn't matter what, you know, generally speaking, you're in the same range of comics. And I tried to do that when I got to Austin, and that did not go over well. Everybody was like, she's a bitch. And I'm like, what? I'm actually just
trying to bust your ball. I was
like, I'm trying to bond. I'm like, this is how I know how to bond. Like, and then it was like, okay, just stop. I had to adjust my behavior. I couldn't force what I wanted on them. It's like, if I want to do that, I go back to New York. I hang out with my New York comics. We fucking get into it with each other, and that's fun. But that kind of energy, that kind of freedom, that kind of like, let's chill. That's not there at Mitzi's, and it may never be there. And again, it may just be because of the what we're dealing with. Like, Rebecca doesn't have a podcast that makes a lot of people angry. You know, Joe does. Right. Joe does. It makes a lot of people angry.
Don't ever date anyone that she ever dates. That'll make her angry.
But I don't think, you know, but even then she doesn't have to ban everyone because nobody's coming for her, you know? And so right. I can get why you need that level of security, you need that level of tension, and then that can create that atmosphere. But that is not there at the Creek. Like the Creek is, you know, people sit together who aren't anywhere in the same field of comedy, and that's actually good, I think, because the younger ones want to learn from the older ones, and then the older ones can kind of do a little bit of like schooling there, which I think is good.
Yeah, even at the Comedy Cellar in New York, there's very much the comics table. You are not to go over there unless you're past at the club or you're on that night or you're, you know, close with somebody. But like you can sit in the olive tree, you can sit in the nearby tables, and you can say hi to people you know.
Yeah, there isn't this sense of like, don't speak to this person, you know?
Yeah. Every time I've gone there to just like kind of hang out in between other spots, like I'll see somebody I know, chat them up, whether it's another comic or Noam, the booker, and you just say hey for a few minutes. So
yeah, and I will say, I think
like you can't set foot.
I do think people are misunderstanding why Ty's making these videos. Like, I don't necessarily think he's just trying to stir up drama. I think he's a little bit of like the canary in the coal mine who's trying to signal a warning that says, and this is his opinion, right? So you don't have to agree with it, but his opinion is in the long run, this isn't going to be good for the Austin comedy scene. And it's ultimately not going to be good for the club. I mean, perhaps like I know, because, you know, listen, if you get the finest comics coming into your club, you know, you get the Andrew Schultzes, you get the Dave Chappelle's, you get the Bill Burrs, and those are people forming. Yeah, your club's going to be fine, you know, because but then that's what that club's going to be about. And people need to understand in the Austin comedy scene, like you don't want to hang your horse on that because you're not there. And I think in my opinion, that's what I think Ty is trying to do. And he does have the support of a lot of the Austin comedy scene. And I don't necessarily think he's just trying to be negative or stir up drama just because, although there is drama that has been stirred up, you know.
Right. And he's saying like, you know, some people will, just like with any comedy city like New York or, well, LA formerly, I don't think LA is as much anymore. I think Austin is the new LA. You know, he's saying like, don't, you know, move here and live in your car thinking that you're going to start getting booked right away.
I mean, honestly,
$200-$300 a set.
Comedians should have jobs anyway. I don't know what these kids are doing. Yeah. Like, I've never.
A lot of comedians glamorize the poverty aspect. It's something I talk about.
Yeah, being poor sucks. Get a job, learn how to work. Especially a lot of you guys are men. You should learn how to be men.
Yeah.
Also, that's going to make you attractive to women, and then you won't just have to prey on whatever new female open micers come into the scene.
Exactly.
That's where I get a little sassy. I'm like, listen, okay? You don't have a job. You're not entitled to pussy. I didn't make up the rules. It's been that way from the beginning. Stop getting upset.
Good. Please, I literally had a full-time job the entire time I've done stand-up, only up until December of 2021 when I got fired for not taking the vaccine. If I hadn't gotten fired for not taking the vaccine, I possibly would have still been working that day job because my parents drilled it into me. We paid for you to get a degree. You better keep yourself in health insurance. You better not, like, I very much did not feel like I could ask them for handouts. They never paid my rent. They never paid for any of my expenses. Like, I literally scraped and not starved, but like it's, you know, but this is the life I chose to lead, you know, and just the whole like, oh, I'm just gonna.
It's not cute.
I'm making lattes. I'm just gonna make lattes and fucking eat. You don't have to eat ramen every day. You can get a regular job. Your job ends at like 5 or 6 o'clock. You can go out and do mics all night, every night.
But a lot of those people are lazy, and that's why they've chosen to be stand-ups, and that's why they're trying to get rich, you know, and that's why they're disgruntled.
Road gigs on the weekend, and I did that for years. So it's possible to do both, and it would always bother me. Be like, well, you're not a real comedian if you have a day job, but it's like I'm trying to not eat ramen every night, so that's like
you're not a real comedian if you have a day job, and a lot of these people are not real comedians, and they don't have a day job. So how about we relax?
And it's like women, like we require a little bit more. Like a man can wear the same pants all the time, sleep on unwashed sheets, eat.
Well,
garbage.
He can't really do that, but they convince
themselves.
Really
do that, for too long.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. Anyway, I just feel like they should grow up. That's my thing. It's a lot of Peter Pan syndrome in comedy
But
scene.
men
And I don't
also
think those are the ones
have-
that succeed anyway. So
men also have a longer runway for that because
Yeah.
there is no biological clock. There is no rush to get your shit together and figure it out and settle it down before a certain age. Like you have
Right.
more time to dick around, figure it out. And that's what your 20s are for, men and women. You should be failing. You should be taking risks. You should be like going hard on your dreams.
Yeah.
But for certain, that is why there's not more women in stand-up, because women do not want to spend 10 years of their 20s and 30s figuring out if they can do comedy when they know, like, this is when I'm supposed to start a family if I want that
Yeah.
and
Yep.
find a man.
Yep. But that's why it's okay if women want to get into it afterwards. I feel like in general, I feel like women have, they've been taught backwards. I feel like and this, I wish I'd known this, but I was too traumatized. I think that you should spend your early 20s finding a mate, starting a family, building that. And then when your kids are a little older and self-sufficient, you get into your career, whatever that is, your passion or whatever, because at that point, like, your kids need you less and you need something to do. So you're not like, oh my God, my kids.
Harder. I think it's harder for like a woman in her 40s to just suddenly break in. There is something about being in your 20s that is good about starting stand-up, because like you have more energy, you can be scrappy, you can do a lot of shit for free. You can stay out.
But I didn't start in my 20s. I started in my 30s.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would have been good for me to start in my 20s. I was too unstable.
I don't think a mom with grown kids is going to be like, I'm going to go into the city and do spots till 12, 1, 2 a.m.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But like you can, it's just
But Joan Rivers kind of did that, right? She had her kids and then she started stand up. So look at her. She's pretty awesome.
True. She is an example to us all. Let me see. Okay, so he is talking about, I want to make sure I cover his points. The exclusivity of the mothership. He's saying the club should just be about stand-up. But I don't know. I just feel like it's always going to be about who you know. Whoever the booker is going to have their bias, is going to have their dudes. And he also mentioned like it's whoever this booker likes, and it's also whoever Tony Hinchcliffe likes. That's who's like getting these spots most of the time.
But I think he does say something important, even if it's an ideal. In his second video, right at the like 11:09 timestamp, he says this thing about, maybe you should put your personal feelings aside and do what's best for the club. And that's a challenge, I think, for any human in any field. How do we put our personal feelings aside and do what's best for the club? I mean, all I do is run a show at Sunset, and sometimes, people ask me to be on the show who I'm friendly with, and I'll put them up because we're friends. And I my personal feelings get in there. Do I regret it every single time? Yes. Do I try to do less of it? Yes. Why? Because there's a paying audience, and a paying audience coming in to make them sit through something that's painful is not very kind to them. And so, but that's a challenge, I think, for anyone. But if you're not even striving for that, I mean, I do think it's okay for people to call that out. You don't have to change, but this idea to kind of like penalize him and turn on him and then penalize me for sharing it because I agreed with some of the sentiments. I mean, that's insane to me, but that's the cost of telling the truth. And like I said, Joe Rogan got banned for telling the truth about Carlos Mencia. It's not the first time it's happened. It's not the last time it's going to happen.
There's always going to be an established guard. You know what I mean? There's always going to be like the people that are in and the people that are not in.
Yeah.
And
but that's breaking. That's breaking because of the internet. Because, like, thank God for the internet, because I have my fans who follow me across the different platforms. Shout out to Tristan Tate, who's following me on X.
Wow.
I know how to get along with human traffickers because I'm Albanian.
Wow. I didn't know you're Albanian.
Alleged human traffickers. I do think that's totally possible, but that's just like a political.
All right, let me play this clip to see if he mentions.
Like, I feel like she shouldn't be allowed.
Okay, he's talking about he feels like this booker is partial to this girl who he used to date. And so he's like, oh, wow, I'm noticing she's getting a lot of spots. And maybe he doesn't think she necessarily deserves to be there talent-wise. And so he's just saying it should be about the comedy and not just who you like.
never seen her kill it. So does she deserve several spots every time she comes to town at what's supposed to be the biggest and best comedy club in the world? I even had Sarah on my show. So it's not like I feel like she shouldn't be allowed to grow. I just know that as it stands, she does not deserve to get that many spots. I don't really even think she deserves any spots at the mothership, to be honest.
There's lots of people that think that I'm not funny.
But Adam will load her up with spots because both of them, he loads them up with spots, but then they don't do well. And for some reason, he doesn't notice that. And I think a good booker, Adam, even if he dated Sarah back in the day, and maybe that's the reason that he continues to give her spots, should be able to put his personal feelings aside and say, look, this is what's best for the club. Don't save that speech for me and then tell me why I shouldn't be getting booked when clearly I kill it at your club. Instead, you want to put your ex-girlfriend up. And Kim and Sarah are both cool girls. They're cool to hang out with. They're cool to chat with. I'm just talking about the comedy. And when I mentioned Kim Congdon, Kim does have potential to be funny. Sometimes she is very funny. Nothing personal. We've even DM'd each other recently. Not too long ago, we DM'd each other. But she knows how she's doing at the club. When she's going through her phone and scrolling and just trying to make things funny in the moment, that's not necessarily gonna be the best recipe for an audience that is paying what they're paying to be at the best comedy club in the world. There's also a comic by the name of Benji Aflalo when he comes to town, which I know you've never heard the name Benji Aflalo, but when he comes to town, they make sure he gets plenty of spots. Is he anything spectacular? No. And I know that's only 3 names that I mentioned, but if you were to hand me the list for the last couple of weeks or even a couple of months, I could tell you who does well and who doesn't do well. I don't even think Adam is at the club enough or pays attention enough to actual sets to be able to say. And when it comes to me specifically, he's rarely even there by the time that I go up. So how is it this person that's rarely there can tell me or anybody else how it is I'm doing at the club or whether or not I deserve spots? But then when I finally do ask him about it, because I didn't mention that, and I still haven't mentioned those names to him specifically because I know he would get upset because they're his friends. And I know to a degree everything runs somewhat on favorites, but to that degree it seems a little bit.
I know, and then he goes on, I'm not sure if it's in the first video or the second video, but he talks about how he'll do this staff show, which is meant to showcase like the guys who work there, like the door guys. I don't know if they're all guys or there's guys and girls who work the door, but that's what they call the staff show. And he's done that. He says, wow, I kept noticing I was always going last.
Yeah.
Every
which
single
doesn't make
time.
sense. Yeah.
Even when he tried to switch his spot, like I guess he heard that Adam the Booker didn't want him to go sooner and wanted him to go last every single time.
Right. So he even says like there's going to be some degree of favoritism, but it's tipping to such an extent that you're actually hurting your comedy club.
Yeah.
And that's not an unwarranted criticism. I mean, recently I had 2 friends from out of town come in, lay people who went to see a show there, and they were like, yeah, it was okay. I honestly saw a better show at Creek in the Cave. And I was like, that's not good. And so you're going to shoot the messenger, but the message is still true.
Yeah.
But sometimes people don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you are going to put yourself on the firing squad when you do that. And I understand that. And I accept that. Like, I accept that me supporting somebody who's being critical, even though I am supporting because I think the criticism, if taken in, could actually benefit you, not because I'm trying to, because I really don't want to put anybody down who's on our side. Like, one, as comedians, we're getting attacked all the time by the left. They don't want to let us say anything. And thank God for Joe and for what he created, because we actually have a space where we can speak. And because he's on the other side and he's like so public and he's fighting, it is creating, him and Elon Musk, whether you don't have to agree with everything, but they are creating a kind of a place where there can be a fight back to the censorship that wants to happen. So the last thing I want to do is have infighting when we're like, cutting down the people.
Really tried to take out Rogan, and they
really did. They really did.
Many of his friends and many in his circle.
Yeah. Yep. And that I think was a concerted effort to try and take him down, which I like. Thank God that they weren't able to, because where would we be? Nobody would be able to talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just saying, like, he's pointing these things out. Like, I can see how you could watch this and go, he's just complaining because he doesn't get more spots. But he's saying, hey, I know I'm funny. I know I always deliver. It doesn't seem fair.
Well, what he's saying is you're going to such an extreme that doesn't make any sense in his perspective, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. He's just in the I don't give a fuck place, I guess. And he just.
Yeah. Well, Ty is that guy. He doesn't give a fuck. He honestly doesn't give a fuck. So we need that. I do think we need that.
Identity politics ruining comedy. Let me see if he goes. Oh, this is where he talks about Tony Hinchcliffe.
Going to really eat into that 80. So that's where you end up falling.
Here we go.
New stuff. Like I said, especially in the beginning. I don't even know why he thinks that's good advice in the first place, but he's the booker and we're all supposed to bow down to him. But let's not talk about the fact that a lot of the people that are getting in right now on the newer side are off of Tony's recommendation because Tony is kind of trying to run the club like his own.
But Tony has a huge show there that sells
out.
He does have a
huge show.
Sells out weeks in advance.
His show has been a big part of building the scene, right? Because it basically showcases new talent. I mean, I got showcased on there, and so that's going to be an attraction. I think Joe knew what he was doing when he had Tony come down here because, you know, I think Joe knows that a comedy scene needs new blood, and new blood needs to feel like there's there's a path for upward trajectory. And I do think Tony's show creates that if you're good and you do it right, you know?
Yeah. I did it in March of 2020, right as the pandemic was like really happening. It was really is a cool experience. It was like early March 2020. And it was just like mumblings of like, is this really happening? And then like, I remember after I did the show, like I went to this grocery store in West, people were buying up all the hand sanitizer and buying up all the alcohol.
Toilet paper.
Yeah. And I remember like, cause I was just flying back in the next day or two, I bought like, for some reason, many little bottles of Listerine. I dumped out the Listerine and then instead put like rubbing alcohol in the Listerine bottles because I thought for some reason I'd need to be able to make my own hand sanitizer for the planes. And it was just a weird panic buy. I was like, I guess I gotta get some stuff because I was like in LA. I just didn't know. But
shout out to Shark Media for the most random comment. You don't see many dudes called Leonard no mo.
It's true. No, you don't. Oops.
That's funny.
Yeah, there was a lot of hand. Oops. All right. I can't pull up comments.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
That's fine. You guys can see
there it was right there.
And when it comes to the number of spots that he has, Adam now has 10 spots per show. That's 8 shows that he has. So 80 spots is what he has to deal with. It's not that hard to negotiate putting up a variation of different comics and not just sticking with your favorites. But when you're giving your favorites between 4 and 6 sets a week, that definitely does take down the number. And then when you're not only doing your favorites, but also Tony Hinchcliffe's favorites, that's going to really eat into that.
Again,
80.
like, he does mention in this, like, you know, you need to mix it up more. I don't know. I've been banned from, I feel like, a lot of places and things, and people have stop fucking with me. So I always, and at some point Ty does say like he's gotten advice from people like, well, just get more famous, which is what I always come back to. It's like, well, hey, you know what? These people
build your own platform. Yeah.
Go back home, regroup, write a new set, build your audience, work harder, and then like really just get to a point where you're so unavoidably huge that by the time these places will have you, guess what? Like I'll be able to rent my own theater and fill it with my own fans, and it won't matter.
Yeah, but I think Ty's talking about something because he cares about comedy in general. Because you got to understand, like you can actually hurt comedy generally, and therefore hurt good comedians by continuing to feature mediocre or not good comedians. Because if people go to a show and they have a terrible experience, you got to understand what's going into a couple going to a show. They might have to get a babysitter. They might have to pay for transportation or parking. Then they're paying for the tickets. They might pay for dinner beforehand. Yeah. They're paying for the drinks there. So that could be a $200 expenditure on the low end and up to $500 on the high end. So they shell out this money, and then the experience they get is lackluster. Why would they want to take that chance and come back again? And then, you know, we could talk about on the bigger market where you're featuring comedians like, what's her name that everybody hates, Amy Schumer, and you're
Does
putting
she even
these people
perform
out.
anymore?
Or I saw Netflix as a joke, like had this comedian on who was, it made me want to hang myself. It's like this person goes on and they're talking about how they're a trans man, so originally a woman, all their different ethnicities that they are, and don't even get to a punchline. It's like, if I'm watching that, I don't want to go out and watch somebody do that live. So you put that out in the ether and people are going to be like, what the hell do I care about stand-up comedy? Stand-up comedy is supposed to be subversive. It is supposed to undermine the power elite. You are supposed to talk about the stuff that nobody wants to talk about because people need that mouthpiece. So if you aren't putting up those comedians, and Ty's a dangerous comedian, okay? He says that a lot of the things that we're thinking and we can't talk about. And he says edgy, cutting edge stuff that makes people uncomfortable. Guess what? That's the epitome of stand-up comedy. There are clowns, there are jokers, they all have their place. But if you don't allow this kind of subversive comedian to be out on the stage, I think all of comedy suffers. And then people watch the Amy Schumers of the world and go, what? Why would I go watch this? This is just,
Yeah, why does she get uplifted? Amy Schumer currently has no dates. I just looked at her website. She has no dates. I don't think she's touring anymore. But and that's why it is people like Amy Schumer who get people like, yeah, I'm done with female comics, because that's the one that comes across their algorithm. They
or
see the movies,
every female comedian
they'll write
they
them
show
off.
you. Every female comedian they show you is some version of cute, barely cute, who talks about her pussy. Oh, so this is what all female comedians are. It's like, no, just the ones that Hollywood's going to show you, because Hollywood only wants you to think of women sexually.
I only want people to think of me as sexually. I know. It's crazy. Let's see. Did he have any other things I wanted to talk about? Oh yeah, identity politics ruining comedy. Let's get to that. Ding 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 ding.
Was at the mothership or get more shows at the mothership than I had actually gotten. I really do feel like identity politics are what ruined comedy in LA. I was in LA for 14 years. And so when people are like, because I'm a woman, I should get this, or because I'm a person of color, I should get that. I am not that guy even a little bit. And to put it that way would not be fair to me or the club. Because like I said, when it comes to the club, everybody was super cool and everybody was super nice. So when I see comments like, he should have known that the masculinity at Joe Rogan's club, it's like, what are you even talking about? Nobody mentioned those things. And I've got to tell you, to be 100% honest, when it comes to Joe Rogan's club and the security there, you're right. They are those kind of guys. They are super masculine, but they're very secure in their masculinity. And there was no part of me that felt like Joe Rogan or his club is homophobic. For anybody that also might be like, you should have known Shane Gillis and his crew are homophobic. Let me stop you really quick. Shane Gillis is one of the nicest, most welcoming people ever as far as comics that are on that level and just people in general. He moved here and he brought his crew with him, which is Mayr Lee, Sean Gardini, and of course, Matt McCusker, and they're all cool. So if you think that in any way, this is me saying this has something to do with the fact that I'm gay, none of it is that. And I do have to be very clear about these things, because even though some people in the comments will make it sound like this guy isn't a comedian, I don't care what you guys think about that. But the entire Austin comedy scene knows. They see me all the time. There has been overwhelming support, and the biggest disservice I could do to me and the Austin comedy scene would be to lie and make things sound a way other than they are. I am not trying to shoot my credibility. And for the people that think this is about clout, I get more views on this channel when I do things that aren't comedy related, even if I mention Joe Rogan's name, than I do if I'm doing comedy related content. So if you think this is about a clout chase, you're also wrong. So another thing that I've got to mention really quick, when it came to the money situation, I was not trying to say that that is terrible money for the amount of time that we're doing. doing. But also, if you know the way comedy works, that is not even a lot of money for those spots. For me to make $100 doing stand-up is not a lot of money. So I did want to clear that up because there was a point in the podcast where he had mentioned,
if you're a young comic, are you going to come to New York and toil away in obscurity for 4 years in destitute poverty? Being New York poor,
it's not even America.
And for
That's
that same
true.
money,
That's actually
you were
true.
living okay, maybe in a part of Texas.
But in
Okay.
Texas, in Austin's an expensive city in Texas.
Yeah, because in New York, it's like you're living with multiple roommates. That's if you have a job, right? Like, unless you're the rare person who has rich parents who can pay for your rent and pay for you to not have roommates. It's like you're living with strangers, you're living with multiple roommates, at least 3 or 4. And you're working probably some kind of job during the day just to pay your rent while you're getting established. Sheldon.
New
Yes.
York is a tough city. It's a tough city to be poor in. And if you make anything less than $200,000 in New York, you're poor.
Yeah, so true.
You can live a good life.
You can still like
decent
split
life.
a house with some
Decent
guys.
life.
and I did have a quick and of course very civil exchange with Andrew Schultz. It wasn't long at all, but it was because when I cut the teaser for Instagram, I didn't want anybody to think that I was implying that Andrew Schultz was purposely misleading people. But if you knew the amount of people that are actually uprooting their lives, the amount of comics, and especially younger, newer comics that are uprooting their lives to be here in the Austin scene, I feel like as one of the elders that is actively on the Austin scene and does see these younger and newer comics moving here, in some cases to live in their cars, and thinking that maybe if they can just get a shot at working at the Mothership or doing sets at the Mothership, suddenly they're going to be making all this money. I do feel like I have a responsibility as a person that was a regular at the Mothership to tell these people, no, that is not going to solve all your problems. That is not going to take care of all your bills. And I'm glad I did, because I was talking to another comedian here on the scene that's actually pretty well established here in Austin, and he's a friend of mine, and he was telling me he had thought the same thing when he had originally saw Andrew Schultz podcast. He thought to himself, because he was having a rough time financially at that time, and he had heard that episode of Flagrant, and he told me that he thought to himself when he got booked on Brian Holtzman's show, which for anybody that doesn't know Brian Holtzman, I've been a fan of him forever. I love Brian Holtzman. But he said when he got asked by Brian to be on his show that he looked up to God and was like, thank you. And he thought his problems were at least going to be closer to solved when he got that check. And then he got his check and it was $100. So
Oh, I mean, that's still God. That's more than I was making when I was newer. So
Yeah, I mean, I'll say $100 a spot for a newer comedian is pretty good. But yeah, if people wanted to watch Schultz and think, oh my God, I'm getting all this money. I mean, that's a little bit on them, because you should know it's Andrew Schultz. Of course, he's going to get paid like substantially more. And again, this is the thing with the new comedians. It's like, buddy, you need a job.
yeah,
You can't. Oh, I'm gonna get. Also, you're hanging your hat on maybe you're gonna get on Rogan's Club, and then you're gonna get bitter if you're not. Like, are you even good enough? Like, you know.
yeah. You should be doing all of the clubs, all of the rooms in any place you move to.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be counting on making money in comedy for quite a while. You know, if it happens, you're one of the
For
lucky ones. But to
years.
count on it,
Yeah.
couple of years, I'd say like
Yeah.
7 to 8 years before you're really earning anything that could substantiate your life, you know,
God, right.
unless, you know,
Yeah,
you start doing
it's
the
hard.
online content and monetizing that way, you know, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or selling your bath water or doing OnlyFans.
Any one of those things. Yeah.
Those are all good. Yeah. So I understand where Ty is coming from, but again, it's like, I don't know if I'm just so jaded or my life experiences led me to a place where I'm like, what do you expect? Like, places are going to book their favorites, they're going to book their friends. Like, none of this is Like,
Yeah, none of it's unusual. I just think that people shouldn't think that what Ty is saying is just his experience, because it's not. He's the only one who's speaking up for it because he's the only one who doesn't give a fuck. That's the truth.
and he was a regular.
And he was a regular. And so he had the inside scoop. Like, I wasn't a regular. So, you know, I can't talk about that, you know, but I you know, like, I don't regret if they ban me simply because I shared his video. It's like, okay.
Wow.
You know,
I don't know. I would just like to see. That's the thing. I think back to like my banning from the Creek. Even I think I don't know how much time had gone by, but I had written her an email being like, "Hey, I feel like this is a big misunderstanding. I didn't know you guys were dating." Like, I tried to extend the olive branch. Of course, I got no response, but like, it taught me a valuable lesson, and that is, you know, no one club is gonna be the end of you. Like, if you get banned by one club, like it just taught me the valuable lesson of like, you got to work around it. You got to work harder. And if you let that stop you, then this business is not for you.
Yeah. Well, also, you know, that if you are thinking, oh, this one club, you know, the Mothership is going to be my way, then maybe you're more interested in being famous than being good.
Right. Right. Gosh. And there are, I know it's the stereotype, but I think if you go to LA, you're going to LA to like, you really want to get famous. And that was the stereotype. Like, you go to New York because you want to focus on stand-up, but LA people really, you're there for Hollywood.
Yeah. And I think Austin's a little bit, it's like half and half. You know, there's a lot of that LA feeling here, but there are a lot of people who care about being good.
Yeah. And the whole system has been shaken up because Hollywood is taking a huge shit now. It's just, there is far less work.
Honestly, Hollywood can burn a fiery death, and
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Fuck them, dude. They're everything coming out of Hollywood was propaganda anyway. Even their comedians. That's why comedy. Somebody said comedy died in the 90s. Yeah, I started making a resurgence recently with people really fighting back. But the reason it did was because comedians, the comedy was hacked by the powers that be, and then comedians just became a mouthpiece for propaganda. And it's like, that's going to die, because that's not what people go to see comedy for. They don't want to see you do a little song and dance and be like, so Trump is a Nazi. It's like, you know, that's why nobody watches late night TV.
Right, because that's all that is. And comedy is hard enough as it is without having, you know, if you're doing your job and pushing boundaries, you're going to have enough people from the outside, normies, you know, people, random Twitter people trying to cancel you, trying to get you fired from gigs. Like, there's already enough of that. We don't need
to do it to each other.
We don't need to do it to each other. We don't need other comedians and other bookers doing that. Like, I remember in 2018, I ended up pissing off this comic named Kate Willett. I've talked about this story ad nauseum too, but she was on Compound Media. She ended up walking off a show because she got upset about the cultural appropriation of Halloween costumes. Like, she's very SJW, but she had a Netflix 15-minute special at the time. So a lot of people just took her side without really looking into it. And since Compound Media is seen as the free speech and like a right-wing platform, people go, oh, fuck those guys. They're all racists. They're all whatever, all the ists. And I remember I got like, I went on to the show, did a parody character of her. She didn't like that. And I remember getting a call from like an industry person. She's like, hey, I'm here at the Big Sky Comedy Festival and your name is Mud right now. Like, this Kate is going around telling people to not fuck with you, to not book you, like that you are a horrible person, that you are encouraging people to threaten her.
I'm going to say this one last thing.
What's this?
Because as far back as she can remember, her Nona,
I gotta
and her
see
Nona's Nona.
Wow, you
told her
queued
we
it
were
up.
Time, which they know. But when you fucking get into the semen of it all, large, what's the two words? Yo, Garrett, what's the 2 words I'm looking for when I describe semen?
Landloads.
Thank you. When you get into the logic of it all and you trace back to the semen that or saliva you're sending, the DNA, you go back millennial and you'll find like, oh my God, you're part fucking Caucasus Mountain Jew. Because
what does this have to do with Halloween costumes?
I'm sorry,
Gino?
I'm gonna go. I really don't feel comfortable.
Seriously,
That's
Gino,
who?
I'm just.
you need to apologize.
no. No, I
Oh, she
don't.
looks like what I thought she would
I'm
look
really
like.
not cool with some of the stuff that just got said right now, and it's just
Okay, make sure you Google. Are you serious?
Kate, I am so sorry. Gino, a formal written apology will be going to you later.
Have a good one, Kate. Don't let me catch you talking to Jews. That's the problem. And
Yeah,
was
she
on
does
that-
have the classic SJW haircut.
Look at me.
Oh
Talk to
my
me. What did I do wrong?
This feels like yesterday.
You are a lot of semen, I guess. I guess it was the semen-based jokes.
Let me explain something to you people, and by you people, I mean blacks. There's none in the studio.
I love Gino. My God.
Yeah, like why would you go on Compound Media when that would be like me going on like Colbert and then getting offended about how stupid they are. It's so stupid.
Oh Lord.
And then they always think they're making a stand by being like, I gotta go. This doesn't stand with my principle. Okay, bye. See ya.
But I remember this was 2018, so I was God, how many years in was I? I don't know. Wait, 10.
6, right?
Maybe 6 or 7. So not super established yet, but she had the better credits. She got in the ears of all these industry people. She was in this like lady Facebook group, and I had already pissed them off because I made fun of the Me Too movement. Like, my God.
Yeah, because it was a scam. That's
I
why.
put out a tweet in 2018 because all these girls were like, oh, I'm getting raped in these basements. These producers are like horrible people. I'm like, don't be drunk in a basement, like with anyone, comedian or not. And like, just don't put yourself in these situations. And I'm thinking, I've been doing comedy all these years. I've never been raped. I've never been molested. Like, I'm too fucking busy. And then I tweeted out, if you have time to get raped, you're not doing enough spots. And they all hated me after that. But I'm like, that's me busy, and this shit will not happen to you. And they really hated me so there was coming off the tails of that. And then we had Kate going around telling people what a horrible person I was because I went on the next day or a few days later in a black wig, pretending that I forgot my jacket or something. Oh, I was just coming out.
That's funny. That's
my
funny.
God, when was this? This was 2016.
You're not doing
all right. This
spots.
is 2016. So this all and I wasn't even a Trump at this point. December 2016. Oh my God. Look at all these people who don't talk to me anymore. Oh my God. It's like opening up a time capsule.
That's so funny.
Wow. It really is like
now they use this against you.
Now they use this against me. What, this tweet still? Yeah. It's a tweet. And I think I put it on Facebook too. I can't believe you found that so quick, Frank. Wow.
I just searched Chrissie Mayr if you have time to get raped.
Oh my God. Calm down, everyone. Like, jeez. Yeah. All right. So I was in it. I was good for a couple years, and then like starting in 2016, I think I started pissing people off for various reasons. So
yeah. But like that's an example of a comedian trying to cancel a comedian, which I think is like a mortal sin in the comedy world. Like your beef with another comedian is your beef, but you got to understand we have enough enemies on the outside. So even if you don't agree with their philosophies, you don't agree. You know how many leftist comedians I got to watch do their, I'm not like, you got to have this person off the, if anybody has a sense of moral righteousness, it'd be people who don't want you killing unborn children in the womb. So if we had any kind of justice, you could call up a club and be like, hey, this comedian is advocating for human genocide. But you can't, you know what I mean? They want to cancel you for the reason they feel so brave is they have the machine behind them and they want to cancel you for going against the machine. But how many of these people do you think would be brave enough if they were on the other side?
In Kate's case, it was she already had a Netflix special. She's in these festivals. She's in the establishment. So she felt like, okay, I can.
She had the machine behind her. I can bury
this chick who has no credits. Yeah,
absolute power corrupts absolutely. So where's she now?
I have no idea. Getting fatter and fatter, which is all I need.
Well,
and honestly, I fucking wish her the best. I don't have time.
Did you hear what I said to you?
The sandbag people. Like there have been comics who have said horrible things about me, about my unborn child, about Frank, about my family. Horrible things. Would I ever go out of my way to get them canceled from a gig? No, I don't have fucking time to do that. Number 2, I don't care to do that. Would I have time or care about shutting down someone's fucking YouTube channel? No, I don't have time for that. I don't care about that. Again,
Yeah,
like
that's
everybody,
insane to me.
yeah,
You know,
it's wild. Ain't
yeah,
nobody got time for that.
That's insane to me because it's like we have enough people trying to shut down voices. Like we don't need to do it to each other, honestly. Even if you don't agree, there's a lot of people that I just stay quiet about, because I'm like, I don't necessarily agree, but you should have a platform. You should have success. Like have fun with it.
Just like everyone was quiet about the fucking fake vax cards and the
Right.
lockdowns and all the COVID bullshit going on at all the clubs,
Yeah.
like that was a good lesson for me too. It's like, oh no, people, if you're expecting what you think is a group of free speech people to stand up for free speech, what's right? No, a lot of people just want to get famous and get their bag, and
Well, that's true.
Like the right
That's
thing.
true.
So maybe I'm stupid for not being outspoken about these things, but it's too late. I can't go back now. Let's see. Oh my God. If things weren't bad enough, Dylan Mulvaney is now doing stand-up Leonarda. Did you know about this?
Well, he's first of all, as a woman, he's going to get nowhere.
I mean, he is willing to suck dick, which is a big
True.
part of starting a stand-up career.
But don't you see? It's like what I said. You have the agents of the mouthpiece taking over something that's supposed to be a subversive art form for the people on the outskirts of society. The people, only by being on the outside of society can you claim, hey, what's going on in there is not good.
Which, in one sense, Dylan is as a mentally ill. I mean, not even being mentally ill is not even in the minority anymore. It's the majority at this point. And Dylan has also been vetted as an industry pawn, as an agent of.
Well, he was just a regular ass gay guy until he realized he could get all this attention by claiming to be trans.
Now he's a propaganda queen because he went trans.
Because again, whatever it takes to be successful, that's it.
Yeah.
Let's see this comedy.
Let's see this shit.
I would feel like I was a part of something bigger than myself.
What the fuck are you wearing?
Why is that funny?
Looks like he's a high school cheerleader who didn't finish getting dressed and had to
Well,
run
I mean,
out.
that's what I always say about these trans women. They're always just their version of a woman is always just a slut that they wanted to have sex with who never would have.
Yes.
Like,
they want to dress like the girls who wouldn't talk to them in high school.
Yeah, exactly. It's like grow up, man. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you even doing?
What is your message, Dylan?
Why are people laughing at that?
It's Clapter. They're like, we love you.
Nobody's calling you mother, you gay lord.
Yeah, who is calling him mother?
I was a part of something bigger than myself.
See, but I'm gonna say this.
What club is this happening at?
I'm gonna say this. Do you know
Which
what
wise
club?
guys?
I don't know.
Somebody said Paris Hilton has really let herself go.
Salt Lake City.
Ugh, this is happening maybe in Utah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4 in Utah, and then 1 in Vegas.
So this is either Utah or the Vegas wise guys.
First of all, it's a problem. I blame the people in the audience just as much as him. These people, you should hear pin silence after everything he says. What are they even laughing at? Nothing he's saying is funny, but what you have is a bunch of brainwashed sheep who are like, it's okay to laugh at this. We must support the poor trans women. They're killing themselves. Not fast enough, I say.
But hold on, couldn't you say the same thing applies to any other household name or someone with a huge fan base? People are just going, they love them. They don't care what they say. They're going to clap and be supportive and like.
Who I've seen, for example, Tim Dillon. He's got a huge following. People love him, right? They don't laugh if something doesn't hit.
Right.
And it's unusual.
Well, this is not a stand-up comedy crowd coming to Dylan's show. This is a TikTok crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that has just totally ruined comedy, you know?
Yeah, let's play it again.
Oh, God, no.
I feel like I was a part of something bigger than myself. That was a double entendre. Look at me doing stand up.
Look at me doing stand up.
Why do you gotta slap your own ass?
Pissed that I can beat them in beer pong.
To let everyone know he's a woman.
And the conservative women are pissed that their kids are calling me mother in all of my Instagram accounts.
Well, wait, explain why that's happening, because that's not like a joke in and of itself.
It's not a joke. He's just okay. Here's what's happening. He's just parroting propaganda. The conservatives are so dumb. They're so racist. They're so anti-trans women. Bullshit, right? So all you have to do is say the propaganda and people laugh. Like, I don't know if you can play this, but I can send you this clip that someone sent me, which I think is just absolutely hilarious. Of let me see if I can find it real quick. You can talk.
Yes, find it. I'm gonna pee really quick. Hold on.
Okay.
That was fun. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry. I should have
sent
told
it.
you to vamp. Okay. Did you find that clip?
I did. I texted it to you.
Oh. I wonder if I could get it from my phone to the StreamYard. Let's see.
Just so you guys know, in the chat, my OnlyFans is me fully dressed reading Ted Kaczynski's book. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And then I'll be reading more subversive
And
stuff.
who or what is this a clip of that we're watching?
This is from Netflix as a joke. This is one of their official people that they've picked. If we could play this, because this is the most absolute ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh boy. And I mean, now that oh Lord, how do I even shrink this down? Okay. All right. Let me try refreshing this, because as we know, the comedy festival in Montreal, Just for Laughs, which was the comedy festival, they just went bankrupt, and I think they booked a lot of.
They just went bankrupt because of exactly what Ty said, identity politics.
They just
this
booked,
is what.
This is not a good setup for this, because this clip is so physically large. I think we have to do this.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know. Can anyone hear this? I can't hear this.
Like, what is that even? What are we even looking at?
This is the visual. Doc Martens, a skirt, a man. Okay.
And one of the side effects of taking testosterone is that you get the sudden urge to try stand-up comedy.
Oh, God.
Did you know that the confidence you get when you walk through the world as a man is directly proportional to the confidence you need to try stand-up comedy? Which is probably why so many mediocre white men think they can do it.
You hear the clapping?
It's flat. It's more
Someone once
popular.
told me when I first started stand-up that it was very important to define myself clearly straight away, so that the audience was open to listening to me. Apparently all this, it can be distracting from the comedy. But defining yourself is pretty hard when you're an Indian American, kind of Australian person living in Britain who's a trans, masculine, non-binary, bisexual, polyamorous, dyslexic performance artist.
Like, it's not enough to be funny. Like, your titles are not enough anymore.
How many labels can you put on
And
yourself?
there's nothing more confusing than performance art. I've been on testosterone for 10 years.
So, first of all, he's doing a joke that I used to hear every fucking white female comedian do in New York. Oh, I don't have the confidence of a white male doing stand-up comedy.
Oh, I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre white man. God,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was something you'd
So
hear 10
all
times
the
a day
time.
for
All the
6
time.
years. Yeah.
Then all these labels, it's like you don't have anything else behind your identity except that. You don't even know what you are. You're trying to say you're a man, but you're wearing a skirt. And you're disgusting to look at. Just want to say, you confuse everyone. All this trans stuff, that you cut yourself out of the sexual market because nobody knows what you are.
Oh God, I forget who. Somebody once said one of the funniest things I've ever. You're not non-binary. It's just nobody wants to fuck you or something like that.
I love that. Yeah, I love that.
So perfect. So yeah, and that is why Just for Laughs went bankrupt, because you can't have a comedy festival of just everyone like that.
But that is what Just for Laughs was.
Wow. It's wild. It's like, no, let me hear just about like your fucking life experience. Like, and I'm not opposed. Thai Rivera is great. I don't give a fuck that he's gay or whatever he is, or like,
because he doesn't. That's not the punchline in every single one of his jokes. I'm gay.
Yeah. And I fucking ran a show at the Stonewall Inn. I was like actively booking up and coming LGBT talent. I was getting people from the cellar to come on. That show ran for 6 years, which is a fucking eternity in terms of produced shows in New York. So it's like, I definitely did not care what somebody's sexuality was. So it's just a shame. It's just a shame. But you know what? Like the industry is changing, and it's certainly not boring. Matthew Hammond, how do we stop this? All the clapter. Can they play this loop at Guantanamo Bay?
I think that would be too cruel.
You can't
even for
stop
Tara.
it. You can't stop it because you can't stop someone like Dylan from, Dylan is a tool of government propaganda. He's been artificially propped up by the machine to push an agenda, and all algorithms are in his favor. So he's going to have insane success on social media, which means insane fans and support. So you're not going to stop somebody from having fans. It's just like we can kind of just continue to roll our eyes and be like, all right, oh, how cute. Dylan tried stand-up. Now Dylan has a song out, okay? Like, what's next? A line of bras for Dylan? We just continue to mock these people. That's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah. Well, I think the more people mock them, see, that's why they want to silence comedians like us who are on this side, because we are mocking them and we're actually good at what we do. So our mockery is effective. See, if you're bad, nobody cares. You can go on there and say whatever you want because you're bad. But when you're effective at your mockery, well, now they got to shut you down. Now they got to start making shit up about you.
Right. And then you start triggering Keith Olbermann. White girl hoeing. Leonarda, you're smoking hot.
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh my word. We covered a lot of important topics today. Yeah, Leonarda, you have balls for like even talking about this, and again, and like even me having you on talking about this probably.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever.
And I honestly, this will be the last that I ever talk about this. I will not be talking about this again ever. This is the only time I'm talking about it because I don't want to feed any drama. I don't like any drama. Some people are like, oh, you have beef with Joe Rogan. I do not have any beef with Joe Rogan. I think he's actually awesome. And I'm so grateful to him for what he has created and for the way that he was willing to push back against the machine during the pandemic and afterward. You know, I don't think people understand what it takes for someone at that level to do that. But I did want to clear the air about, you know, because people are starting making things up about why I got banned, and I don't want any of that. I also want to be clear, like, I'm not particularly upset about it. I didn't enjoy going in there. If the club changes to reflect more of Rogan's values, I'd be more than happy to be there. And also I wanted to be clear that, like, Thai is not alone in what he's expressing. He's probably speaking for hundreds and hundreds of comedians right now. And, you know, you only hear him, so he can sound like a crazy disgruntled person. And it just was weighing on my mind to just kind of leave him on the ledge like that. Cause I don't believe in leaving people on the ledge who speak the truth. Like, they need to be backed up. And honestly, these comedians who feel this way, they should get a little bit of bravery and even just put out a statement, even if you don't have to get controversial, but even just saying, like, you know, some of the stuff he was saying was true and this stuff needs attention would be enough, so he doesn't feel like he's fighting this battle by himself, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know about all the stuff. Like, I don't have any comment about, like, Kim Congdon or Sarah Weincheck's comedy because I've never seen them live. So I don't ever like to comment on people's comedy. Like, people said that about Bert, what's his name? Bert, the guy who always takes his shirt off.
Kreischer?
Bert Kreischer. I've never seen his stand-up either. I've never seen it live. So I've never been able to comment it. Brendan Schaub, I've never seen his stand-up live. I can't comment on it. So, you know, sometimes I think some people thought that when I shared his video, I was saying that everything he was saying was true. And that wasn't it at all. I felt like a lot of it was true. I also felt like it was really funny. And I think that the way he edits and cuts things together is funny. And I also felt like that people should watch this for various reasons. So that's all that I have to say about any of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I'm glad you came on, Leonarda. It's okay.
Well, thanks for having me on.
One club does not make or break us here.
Yes.
And I find you personally hilarious, and I liked you right away. I know I had you on the podcast to talk about Ukraine coming after you. And then you hit me up when I was in Austin. I was like, yeah, come to a spot. You walked in the green room. You started talking for a couple minutes. Me and Lila are just like, we love this girl.
It felt so nice to be welcomed like that too, you know?
Larry Sharp. I love Leonarda. Good to see you. I don't
know who
Larry
that is.
Sharp or a Larry Sharp.
Well, thank you, Larry. Good to see you.
And Jabari of Judah, a couple of coins for the new baby. Oh, thank you, Jabari. Leonarda reminds me of a female Archie Bunker, and I mean that in a good way.
That's fine. I love being compared to, like, grumpy old men. That's how I feel like my personality is. Like,
Honestly,
I'm just like a
same.
grumpy old man.
That's the direction I'm heading in. Thank you guys all for watching. Later tonight, you can catch myself, Gino, Bisconti, and Keanu. We will be on Quite Frankly, which is Frank Valbiro's show. And gosh, where can we watch that? I feel like I was just telling them. QuiteFrankly.tv. The show starts off across all major platforms, and then at the halfway point, it just goes all the way to QuiteFrankly.tv and pilled.net. But yes, start on QuiteFrankly.tv. Tune in at 7 to see myself, Gino, and Keanu. And of course, I'll be headlining the Grantville at the Laughingstock Comedy Club next Friday, the 22nd.
That's your last show?
Last show before the
the
baby comes out. Unless the baby wants to be very funny and come out before
At the
then or
show.
during then. We'll see. And everyone follow Leonarda on Twitter. And yeah, anything else? Any final
Yeah, they
thoughts?
can also check out my Instagram. My Instagram is Leonarda.Jonie. And I'm on YouTube. Leonarda is funny.
Amazing. I love you guys. Thank you to the chat for your comments and questions. Love you, Leonarda.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, we will see you.